My name is Andrew Norton. I'm a strop enthusiast. I've been interested in all the Baja Broncos and strops since about 1992 when I was 16 years old, and it's just been my career and my passion to learn all I can about strop Broncos and Baja Broncos. And I have a website and a registry for the Baja Broncos, and I also have a business called Baja Broncos Unlimited that finds old Baja Broncos, old racing Broncos, revives them and takes them racing. And also I produce some parts for the Baja Broncos so people can restore them accurately. Ever since I was a little kid, I think I was into anything with wheels. One of my first words was regarding a car. My parents figured that out. And I think when I was 14, my dad and I bought a Mustang that needed to be restored. And we took it up to the snow. I don't know why we were taking an old Mustang to the snow, but we just treated it like a normal car. And on the way back down, we stopped and we'd had trouble with the chains and this, that, and the other. And there was a 68 Bronco for sale at this gas station for $1,400. And I looked at that thing and I said, oh, maybe we should have got a Bronco. It naturally led me, when I was told about the Baja Bronco, to then research the Baja Bronco. And at the time, there wasn't a whole lot of information on the Baja Bronco. There were magazines that would put little blurbs in there about 1971, 73, they made the Baja Bronco in limited numbers. And from there, I just started researching. I went to microfilm at the library, bought old magazines at swap meets, and just learned everything I could about strop Broncos. I called down to Strops a couple times when I was a teenager, but they were still busy doing other stuff, but they always took their time to answer whatever questions I had come up with that month. I make decals for the Baja Broncos. I used to produce tire covers. I'm still working on that, doing that again. A lot of the processes for the way. This is what I try to do with the products that I make, is try and make them as exact as possible as to how Strop did it. So our fender decals are the best you'll find. They're made off of a new old stock original. Same with our roll bar decals. But basically try and produce the parts that are unique to the Strop Bronco, not necessarily all the parts you can buy at Bronco vendors, but the pieces that you make a 71, 72, or 73 to 75 Baja Bronco unique. I try and source the parts the way Strop did it. I also do body off restorations. One of my first Baja Broncos, I went off-roading with it in an off-road park, and that was fun, but the guy behind me rolled down the hill and destroyed his Bronco. And so I kind of took like a little bit of a break from off-roading, and I just decided that the Baja Bronco was a little too special to be beaten on. I tried to keep it as nice as possible, but then I also was gravitating towards collecting the racing Broncos and finding the racing Broncos. And my friend Todd Zerker had found one of the old Strop racing Broncos. And he shared that information with me, and together we decided that if that truck ever came available, we would buy it. Well, that happened in, I believe it was 2006. We were able to buy that Bronco, and with some help of our friends, Chris Wilson and Glenn Stradiff, we loaned the truck to them in exchange for them prepping it, and took it to the 2010 NORA Mexican 1000, which was the first time they had done a throwback retro Mexican 1000, similar to the races from 67 through 75. And they won with that truck, and a friend of ours in the vintage off-road racing world and off-road racing world said, why the heck don't you guys just race it yourselves? And so that thought entered our brain, and we got together some friends, Nick Minutier and Terry Marvell and Gary Hewitt and Eric Nessett, and we took the car down for the 2012 NORA Mexican 1000 and raced it ourselves. And I think it's pretty safe to say we were hooked at that point. And at about the same time, a good client of mine, Gary Kasinger, he had purchased a Baja Bronco and had me do a frame-up restoration on it, and he since I was restoring his car about the same time that we were working on the Strop Bronco that Todd and I owned, he just saw the excitement of racing and thought that he's like, I got to get in on this somehow. So we looked for another original Strop racer for him. Couldn't find it, and ended up building him a Strop modified Bronco, but building it into a Strop spec racing truck, basically identical with a couple safety upgrades, identical to what Strop would prepare the original race Broncos like. He was not well and wasn't able to actually race the truck, and asked Todd and I to race it, and we did really well and finished our first race out, which was exciting. I think that was 2013 Nora Mexican 1000. He wasn't able to go racing with us ever, and he passed away, and he and his family, that was their wish, that to keep going to the racing and bring his family along. And so for years, Sue Kasinger and the Kasinger team, which consisted of Todd and me and several of the Kasingers' relatives and also a couple of our friends, we just became a really good team. And we've raced down in Mexico in the Nora Mexican 1000 up until 2020. And then we also did 2022, I believe, as well, in the slow Baja expedition. This Strop Bronco is called the Colt. A lot of the Strop Broncos got named. Sometimes they were named by the racers, other times named by Strop or the fabricators building them. All right, so let's take a look under the hood. The reason for the bubble is not a supercharger or anything crazy, it's the carburetor and the engine, because when they sectioned the Bronco and made the body lower, the engine stayed in the same place. So over the years, Colt had a bunch of funny looking hoods, but this is probably the best looking one. But as you can clearly see, the reason is for the radiator and the air cleaner. Also, this is all original aluminum work. It was done by Dick Russell at Bill Strop's shop. And the bead rolling work is excellent, and it's all got a lot of patina to it. But that's another thing about this Bronco, is that it's so intact. We want to leave it the way it is. They moved the springs directly under the frame rail. This Bronco was found in Mexico in the hands of a racer who bought it from Strop in 1979 or 1978, Luis Farrell. And he was part of a big Mexican off-road and motorcycle club. And he took excellent care in preserving this vehicle. The Colt Strop Bronco is a good example of what Strop and Parnelli Jones were striving for in a race Bronco for Parnelli. He had already broken axles and complained that the Bronco was too heavy. So the Colt Bronco, as you can see, it sits lower. The reason being is they took about 2 inches out of the center of this vehicle. They sectioned it, essentially. They cut it here and took out 2 inches. You can see how the fender flare fits up here. They also bobbed the truck and cut right down the quarter seam where the taillight panel of a regular Bronco would be. And they put flat steel here and trailer lights. They also made it 90-inch wheelbase rather than the 92-inch wheelbase a Bronco normally is. That made the car lighter. They also cut out the inner fenders and put in aluminum panels instead of having the traditional Bronco wheel wells. But that brought the center of gravity down on the Bronco. Here you can see some of the history on this Bronco as well. It really did well in 1972 at the hands of Bill Rush and Danny Shields. They won the 72 Baja 500, 72 Mexican 1000, and the Firecracker 250. And what's interesting about this Bronco is it was sent to Japan for the Japan Off-Road GP in 1972. Bill Rush, Parnelli Jones, and Bill Strop and their families flew to Japan, and Parnelli Jones drove this Bronco and came in second place. They had intended to leave it in Japan and sell it to some Japanese racer, but in fact, the tariffs were too much and nobody wanted to pay the price, and so it was shipped back and ended up doing well in a few more races, and then eventually being retired in the 80s.